In the spring of 1995, the small Texas town of Briarwood carried the same simple rhythm it always had. Days were slow, nights were quiet, and people still waved from their porches as trucks passed by. Most families had lived there for generations. Kids biked past the same rusty mailboxes their parents grew up with. The old water tower still stood crooked on the edge of town, half-painted and forgotten. Nothing dramatic ever seemed to happen in Briarwood, but on April 17th, that illusion shattered forever, because on that quiet Monday night, 16-year-old Emily Grace Parker vanished somewhere along the short walk between her workplace and her home, and no one has ever seen her again. Emily wasn't the sort of girl anyone expected to become the subject of a mystery. She was quiet but warm, shy but thoughtful, and her smile always seemed a little gentle, like she didn't want to take up too much space. She lived with her mother, Linda Parker, and her two siblings, an older brother named Jacob and a younger sister named Hannah. Their father, Robert, had left the family 2 years earlier, taking a job in El Paso and rarely calling. The gap he left behind was heavy, but Emily tried to fill it by being steady, responsible, and grown beyond her age. Most days followed the same predictable pattern. She went to school, helped her mum, and worked evening shifts at the Briarwood Diner, a small, neon-lit place that smelled of coffee, frying oil, and old stories. Locals came not just for food, but for familiarity. The staff knew everyone's order, and the town's gossip usually traveled from booth to booth before landing at the counter. Emily had only been working there a few months, but regulars already knew her as the sweet, quiet one. She had dreams, too, bigger than Briarwood, bigger than the narrow roads and fading buildings. She wanted to study graphic design someday, move to a city, and live in an apartment decorated with her own artwork. She even had a notebook full of sketches, birds perched on wires, old houses, faces with soft expressions. She never showed those drawings to many people, but her best friend, Rachel, had seen them all. Emily wasn't the type to run away, Rachel would later say. She was excited about the future. She had plans. She had goals. She wasn't trying to escape anything. That's what makes what happened so chilling. April 17th started like any other ordinary day. The weather was mild, the sky pale and clean, and the town felt half asleep. Emily wore a light blue t-shirt, jeans, and her favorite worn-down sneakers. She attended school, talked a little with friends, and left campus smiling after Rachel told her they should plan a trip to the county fair coming next month. After school, she went home, helped Hannah with homework, and then biked to her shift at the diner. Her work that evening was ordinary. She served coffee, carried plates, laughed at one customer's joke, refilled sugar jars, and checked the clock every so often. Nothing remarkable, nothing that raised alarm. Her co-worker, Misty, later said she wasn't nervous, she wasn't upset, she wasn't distracted. It was one of the calmest shifts I remember. Emily clocked out at 9:07 p.m. The diner owner, Jim Dawson, waved her off as she walked out the door. She didn't have a bike that night. Jacob had borrowed it, so she was walking home, a short 12-minute route she had taken dozens of times. The path was simple. Cross Main Street, walk down Cypress Road, past the blinking streetlight, and cut right toward her neighborhood. Safe, familiar, short. But somewhere along that small stretch of road, something went terribly wrong. The last confirmed sighting of Emily came from an elderly woman named Margaret Hale, who lived near the corner of Cypress Road. She told police later that she saw a young girl walking under the dim streetlight around 9:15 a.m. Margaret remembered because the streetlight was flickering badly that night. It had been for weeks. She also remembered something else, a white pickup truck driving slowly behind the girl, then easing forward as if watching her. But at the time, she didn't think much of it. White pickups were everywhere in Texas. She closed her curtains and went to bed. That was the last time anyone could say with certainty that Emily was alive. At home, Linda Parker started to worry when 9:30 turned into 10 o'clock. Emily was never late without calling. By 10:20, Linda called the diner. Jim Dawson confirmed Emily had left on time. By 10:45, Linda called the police. But Briarwood officers weren't quick to jump into action. They assumed Emily had stopped to talk to someone, maybe a friend. Maybe she was upset about something. Maybe teenagers sometimes needed a break. That assumption cost the investigation its most crucial hours. When officers finally drove down Cypress Road shortly after midnight, they found nothing. No shoe, no bag, no broken phone, no sign of a struggle. The street was quiet, the air still, and the flickering light cast weak shadows across the pavement. It looked like a place where nothing could have happened. But something had.
Rumors filled the vacuum. Some whispered about a drifter who had been seen passing through town. Others talked about a man who'd been fired from the diner the year before. Some even speculated that Emily had run away to meet someone she'd met secretly. But her drawings, her savings, her upcoming plans, none of it pointed to a runaway. Emily had never given any sign of wanting to leave her life behind. Investigators soon focused on a man named Keith Danner, a 28-year-old mechanic with a record of harassment complaints from women in town. Keith drove a white pickup, but he had an alibi, a girlfriend who insisted he was with her all night. The police could never break that alibi, even though many doubted its truth. The truck was searched, but nothing incriminating was found. No fibers, no hair, no blood, just tools, cans, and cigarette packs. The case hit a dead end. Weeks turned into months. The posters on telephone poles faded in the sun. The search parties dwindled. People returned to their routines, but with a quiet unease. Every parent in Briarwood looked at their children differently. Every teenager walked home in groups. Every pickup truck seemed suspicious for a while. Linda Parker refused to quit. She kept calling the police, kept walking Cypress Road at all hours, kept pleading with anyone who might know something. She put up new posters every time the old ones tore away. She searched places the police had already searched. She prayed every night next to Emily's empty bed. Rachel, devastated, visited Emily's room often. She would sit on the girl's bed, flipping through her sketchbook, whispering apologies for not walking her home that night. If I'd gone with her, she told reporters later, maybe I wouldn't have disappeared. Maybe I could have stopped something. The absence of answers became its own kind of torment. People wondered, was Emily abducted? Did she willingly get into a car? Did she know her abductor? Did something unexpected happen? A medical emergency? A fall? An accident? Without evidence, every possibility felt both convincing and impossible. Years passed and Briarwood changed. New families moved in, old businesses closed, children grew up and left. But the story of Emily lingered like a shadow over the town. Her case became an annual reminder of unresolved sorrow. Each April, local newspapers printed small articles, another year without answers. Her family placed flowers at the corner of Cypress Road, and every time her mother spoke at town meetings, her voice trembled with the weight of 2 decades of unanswered questions. In 2008, the case briefly reopened when a man in Oklahoma confessed to abducting a girl from Texas in the mid-90s. Investigators interviewed him for hours, but his story didn't match. The dates were wrong, the locations didn't align, and he couldn't describe Emily correctly. Another dead end. In 2012, a hiker found a piece of clothing in a remote area west of Briarwood that resembled something Emily once owned. For a moment, the town held its breath. But forensic testing showed it wasn't hers. In 2019, DNA technology advanced enough for old evidence, tiny traces from the street, fibers from the diner uniform, to be re-examined. But nothing conclusive emerged. Too much time had passed. Too many clues had faded. Too much potential evidence had been lost in those first critical hours back in 1995. The hardest part of Emily's disappearance isn't the lack of evidence. It's the lack of a story. Most missing person cases, even unsolved ones, have a narrative, a dangerous relationship, a risky habit, a suspicious friend, a known threat. But Emily had none of that. She had no enemies, no secret life, no troubling relationships. She was a normal teenage girl walking home on a normal night. And that's what makes her case so haunting. Today, the old street light on Cypress Road is gone, replaced with a bright, modern LED lamp. New houses line the block where she was last seen. The diner still stands, though under new ownership, its neon sign a little dimmer than before. Kids who weren't even born when Emily disappeared now work behind the counter, unaware that one of the most chilling mysteries in Texas history began right outside their door. Linda Parker is older now, her hair thinner and her voice softer, but she still believes her daughter is out there somewhere, or at least that someone alive today knows the truth. She keeps Emily's room exactly the same. The sketchbook is still on the desk, the drawings are still taped to the wall. Nothing has been moved. In small towns, time doesn't erase tragedy. It simply teaches people how to live around the hollow spaces it creates. Emily's disappearance is one such space, a quiet, unresolved wound that Briarwood carries in its collective memory. And until someone speaks up, until some forgotten clue surfaces, until a conscience breaks under the weight of silence, the truth about what really happened to 16-year-old Emily Grace Parker will remain locked somewhere in the shadows of that short walk home on April 17, 1995. A walk that should have been safe. A path she had taken so many times before. A journey she never completed. And a question that still echoes through Briarwood. How does a girl disappear on a 12-minute walk in a town where everyone knows everyone?